online watershed. Now, Meghan is working with so many agents and entertainment lawyers and PR companies that it's getting hard to keep track of who everybody is, who's trying to hustle right along with her. I mean, every time I'm like, what, you're employing another person? I mean, no wonder you're worried about money. Because, you know, she's still with Sunshine Sachs, and then she's got Gina Nelthorpe Crown in London, and then she's got this, now we've got this new person, Lori Sale, who's working hand in glove with her entertainment lawyer, Rick Janelle. And Lori Sale was known as a feisty, fast-talking, well-known agent, famous for securing marketing and branding contracts for her clients. And Meghan's entertainment lawyer had reached out to Lori Sales and said, hey, could you help Meghan? Remember, Meghan's big goal at this time was to become the face of something. Like, somebody give her a voice. Somebody give her, you know, somebody use her, you know, beautiful face. And so far, everything she had tried had come to naught. Remember when Gina Nelthorpe Crown had, you know, brought her to that place and there was 30 buyers of the Meghan brand, yet, well, potential buyers, but nobody took a bite except for one lesser-known Swiss watch company who was really lukewarm on having a contract with her anyway. So now they're reaching out to Lori Sales. And Lori Sales says she does think she can get Meghan some kind of contract. So Sales went to Toronto, to Canada, and she had this idea. Now, I just want to say this before I even get into the story. I don't totally know why they hired Lori Sales. Not because she won't go on to do other things for Meghan, because she certainly does get her some other work. But for this particular thing, which becomes the greatest of Meghan's endorsements, I think Meghan had actually kind of already done all the legwork. I mean, I don't know really why Lori Sales would have gotten any credit for this. Because Lori Sales goes to Canada and she has a meeting with the head of marketing of Reitmans, which was a large women's clothing retailer. Now, Tom Bauer describes it as a 9-year-old business that offered inexpensive clothes throughout its 700 stores to an aging and declining clientele. So not very flattering. And Meghan, against all odds, I mean, I guess the only thing I can think is that she knew that the brand was so large and that the store was so big that if she could get her face with them, then she could, you know, secure some new followers on the TIG. Because I don't really understand why she would try to associate herself with this brand, which didn't necessarily seem like her thing. But Meghan had already, before Lori Sales got in on it, she already made overtures to Reitmans and had wanted to use some of those clothes on her website and with a mention to Reitmans. And so she'd already persuaded the store to let her promote their clothes on the TIG. So Sales was just pushing an open door, really, to negotiate this, because Meghan had already been in talks with them. They'd already had communication with Meghan. So I don't know where Lori Sales came in on this. I don't know if Meghan was like, hey, I think I have a little bit of a relationship over here with these people. Maybe you could secure me something more. I don't know. The book doesn't tell us. But anyway, Lori Sales does secure Meghan a contract with them. And it was a 2-year contract. And so for 9 days work of filming, this is what they pay her for this. And I just think that for Meghan, who thought she was so important, this would have been just chump change is what this would have been. But for 9 days work, filming the commercial, photo shoots, the launch, and TV promotion, Meghan would be paid $162,000, plus 7% royalties on the sales of all the products associated with her campaign. So it must have been the royalties, ultimately, that she was in on it for, because $162,000 isn't something I'd sneeze at, but for somebody who wants to be making millions and millions and millions of dollars, this isn't exactly an endorsement to run to. But she's willing to take it, because what else is she going to do? So Tom Bauer says, this was a watershed moment for Meghan. No serious Hollywood star, she knew, would associate herself with Reitmans, a brand whose clothes cost under $100, and for only $15,000 a day. After income tax and agent's commission, she'd be left with half that amount. She longed to be the face of Ralph Lauren, not Reitmans. That choice eluded her. At least no one outside Canada would get to see the campaigns. So she's just doing it for the money. And again, I mean, any normal person would be completely fine. I mean, I'll be paid $15,000 a day is nothing I'd sneeze at. And on top of that, even if it was halved, even if it was $7,500 a day, I'd still be like, cha-ching. But for Meghan, this would have been an embarrassment. This would have been something that she would have done and quietly tried to quell the panic that rose as she was taking jobs that she thought were beneath her. Well, maybe that's why she decided to act like such a diva on the day of filming, because a list of demands preceded her before she even got to the Montreal hotel where she'd be filming. She requested in her room and on location green juices, vegetables, and high-end bottled water. What they had for her was Fiji and Evian, but that wasn't good enough. No. I have specific specialty brands, and Evian and Fiji are not up to par. So, can you imagine? I'll drink water out of the tap. I mean, big deal. What in the world? But whatever they needed to do to keep their star happy, because Reitman's was on the decline and they needed some kind of, it doesn't even matter if it's a minor celebrity, we got to get some young blood up in here. So Meghan, they were willing to do what Meghan said. And after that, once they actually were doing the filming, it was going along just fine. Meghan was okay. But then things ended on a sour note, because when it was time to go to the airport, somebody had not booked her car to get there. And so she was in an absolute panic, and she exploded because there was no way for her to get to the airport. Well, I don't know, Meghan, grab your phone, get yourself an Uber. Don't be so babyish. But she was mad that somebody else hadn't done what they needed to do. However, she made her flight in time, so it all turned out okay. But in the interim, she had herself a great big baby fit. Now, Reitman's, it turned out to be the right decision for Reitman's, because they went on to increase sales by 15%. And they decided that they would indeed use Meghan for the following year. And the truth is, Meghan did have reason to feel semi-successful. I mean, the TIG wasn't completely unknown blog, at least in her estimation. She had followers. She had followers on the TIG and on Instagram. And so as far as her social media presence, I'd say that was probably where she was doing the best. Then she had that little brush up with the UN, and of course she wasn't going to talk about it. Hadn't gone very well, but she could at least feel like for a moment she had been brushing shoulders with the greatest political leaders amongst us. And then of course she did have her Reitman's deal. Now the thing is that all of these little successes were painful, really, because they were so close to what she wanted to be the truth, and yet always falling below the standard she had set herself. So, I mean, it's okay that, she had a lot of followers on Instagram. It would have been better if she had 1 million, but she didn't. And it was okay that she'd been with the UN. Of course, she was no Emma Watson, and if she was honest with herself, she knew that, but she wouldn't think about that. And then Reitman's, that old lady clothing brand. Well, I just want fiddly D. I'll think about that tomorrow. I won't think about it right now that everything's just junky and not nearly what I want it to be. She worked out her frustrations at her career stall in the character of Rachel Zane. And it's interesting because I feel like some of Meghan's commentary about herself often comes through when she talks about Rachel Zane. It's like she's got this sort of third person self that she can discuss. So whenever she's talking about Rachel Zane, she's ultimately talking about herself. And she says about Rachel's just not willing to cave. She never gives up. She might be in love, but this won't put her off her end game. And I think that that's not about Rachel Zane. I think that that's about Meghan Markle. I think Meghan, at this point in the story, and it can be a little bit confusing on the timeline because I think 2 or 3 chapters back, Tom Bauer had alluded that they had broken up, but it seems like she's still with him. A very on again, off again type of thing. When she'd go to New York, she'd kind of be single Meghan, and then she'd go back and she'd be with Corey. And so at this point, she's still with Corey. And I think that what she's saying when she's talking about Rachel Zane is, and what she really means is about Meghan Markle, I might be in love with Corey, but I'm not going to be put off my ultimate goals, my ultimate ambitions. Hard graft had secured an advance in Meghan's career. This is true. This is what Tom Bauer says. But the downside was that every small success was accompanied by disappointment on the bigger stage. And we go on to yet one more massive disappointment. She had, like I talked about earlier in the episode, she had a lot of anxiety about herself as an actress, because though she had secured a good spot on the show, Suits, Seuss isn't going to run forever. It's not a starring role in the show. And only thing people know her as an actress is that one character. She really needed other work, which is why she probably agreed to do this movie, Antisocial. The previous year, Anna Kennedy, a casting director, had invited Meghan to audition in Los Angeles for Reg Travis, who is a British director. And he was looking for a female lead in a movie called Antisocial, which is a gritty crime thriller based in London. Travis was exceedingly impressed by Meghan, and she seemed cool and charming, and he went ahead and booked her for the film. She arrived in London amid acrimony because she had demanded, and this is going to be a theme throughout the rest of the book, she had demanded for first-class transatlantic fares and luxury accommodation, but it had been rejected. I mean, they're not going to pay for that. This little movie that's trying to get up off the ground, they don't have the money and the budget to give you first-class transatlantic fare and then also luxury accommodations on the other side. Like, what are you thinking of? How could you be so self-centered? Okay. I've never flown first class. I understand it's a lovely experience. How could it not be? It looks awesome. But you're just trying to get from point A to point B. Does it really matter? You're just in a nasty, grubby bus in the sky. Just get on and get where you have to go. But no, she's got to have first class. It's always first class with her. If she can get anyone to agree to it, she will ask. And to me, it's like, if it's not offered, I would be humiliated to be like, I'll do it, but where's my first class ticket? What? Can you imagine asking? And this is just Meghan's behavior throughout the entire 2 chapters we'll read today. Humiliating self-centeredness. I'm just humiliated for her, cringing at how many times she's like, I'm gonna want extra. Embarrassing. Okay, so anyway, already she'd left a bad taste in people's mouths before she'd even hit the British shores because of all of her demands prior to. And Travis complained that she was unhelpful in every way during the filming. And her co-star, this young guy, also discovered that despite their close relationship, Meghan was super high maintenance. Now, I don't know exactly what this means by despite their close relationship. In typical, I don't want to get sued Tom Bauer way, and I don't blame him, he does not enlighten us on that particular phrase, but I think there's some things implied. Anyway, Greg Sulkin, the young co-star, was over it with Meghan. Now, while she was in London, of course, she met with her, bestie and agent, Gina Nelthorpe-Crown. And Nelthorpe-Crown, this is so embarrassing. Nelthorpe-Crown had made arrangements for Meghan for when she was in London to go and see, could it be Emma Watson speaking at a small private engagement, and Meghan was going to get to be in attendance. And of course, Meghan calls her hero and role model, but what she really means is, here's the person I'm most recently stalking so that I can figure out how to make my star shine brighter. This is the person I'm watching so I can match her ways and cosplay her all the livelong day. Well, she goes, all excited to see her hero and role model, Emma Watson. And at the end, she asked to meet Watson, totally thinking that they were on equal footing, and then Emma would be like thrilled to meet her. But Emma was not thrilled to meet her. The actress rejected the request. Can you imagine how mortifying that snub would be? You're your hero and role model, and you come so close to meeting her. And she's been asking to meet Emma Watson for a long time now. Because when she was at the UN, she kept asking. And it kept being denied her that she should meet Emma. And now, here they were, in a very small meeting. It would have been completely feasible for Emma Watson to have met her. But probably, and I don't know this for sure, but if I were Emma Watson and I'd gotten wind that this minor celebrity was hunting for a meeting with me and seemed almost obsessed with me, I might decline also. Anyway, she declined. And in hindsight, Gina was not surprised. Watson's rebuff was not mentioned, though, when Meghan described her UN role in the TIG. And Meghan hustles on back to the hotel to get on her laptop. Click. Dear TIG readers, she wants to tell all about how she was there supporting her good friend, Emma Watson. Emma Watson's not your friend. She didn't want to meet you. But she gets on the TIG and she says, I was in London to support Emma Watson in her He for She initiative for the UN Women. And it just becomes really clear that the way Meghan dealt with setbacks was to pretend like it didn't even happen. La 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 la. You know, I'm just gonna pretend that me and Emma Watson are tight, but they're not tight. Also, in that same article on the TIG, in which she's talking all about, me and the UN Women, which she's not a part of anymore. Me and the UN Women just love each other. We are just always there to support each other. And I was there to see Emma, and my mentor, Elizabeth Nyamayaro, also was somebody that I was hopeful to see at this event. What? She's not your mentor. You don't work for them anymore. And quite frankly, y'all didn't get along when you did. Okay, so Meghan does not accept rejection. She does not even believe. She always keep positive, straight ahead, plow on. Ignore, 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 ignore. Everyone hates you, who cares? At a certain point, you have to wonder, why is it so hard for me to get my foot in the door? But I think self-reflection was not necessarily a part of her MO. All right, well, she continues to struggle to get on and to stay on this fast-moving carousel of life. She wants so desperately to get a leg up, thanks to Lori Sale's help. Remember Lori Sale, who she'd gotten work with in LA? Lori, I think, is definitely a mover and a shaker, and I can't believe how much she got for Meghan to do. Although, on the page, it all does seem a little bit depressing. I mean, it's work, but it's kind of just unimportant. And it wouldn't have felt like necessarily that great if you were Meghan. Like, these are some of the things that Lori got for Meghan. A lunch with Cable Telecommunications in Chicago. Somebody mentioned her name in a magazine. There were some appearances at events for Air Canada, Equinox, and this project on International Girls' Day. Although the engagement with International Girls' Day, which was hosted by Dove, did pay her $40,000 to show up. And all she had to do was do a social pose and speak promotionally to Dove's delegates. $40,000 for that? So, I mean, Lori Sales was doing Meghan some favors. Those other things don't sound that exciting, but for $40,000, I'll show up at Dove. Anyway, also, she still got her little work that she does with Marcus Anderson and his Soho houses all over the globe. I don't know what Marcus Anderson's up to, and I don't understand why Meghan has to keep showing up to these Soho houses. Why is Meghan continually all over at Soho House? It just makes me wonder what's going on at Soho House, if you know what I mean. But even that was disappointing, because she might have been there, but she's over there endlessly posing for photographs with all the other guests. And then when the pictures came out of the party, was her name mentioned in the byline? Absolutely not. Was her name under the pictures? No, everybody but her. Nobody cared who Meghan Markle was. And the people who labeled the photographs didn't even know who she was. The thing is that beyond Toronto, she was just an anonymous human being. And people did not have time for her. Even that Swiss watch manufacturer who had considered possibly working with Meghan, even they could care less. And this, I mean, I literally in the margins, I have written humiliating exclamation point. Because listen to what happens when she's so eager to get some traction with them. She's ready to wrap up this watch deal. And since they're being so slow, to get their acts together, she decides to go wait in a London hotel lounge to perform yet one more pitch to this company. Can you imagine just hanging around, like hoping somebody pops out of the elevator so you can rush them with your, hey, remember me? I still want to do your watches. Oh my gosh. Now, Nelthorpe Crown was with her and says that Meghan was done up to the nines and looked stunning, but it was all for naught because her behavior was not stunning. I mean, it was stunning as in shocking, but it wasn't stunning as in, wow, we'd love to work with this person. And she wrecked it. Apparently, while they were waiting, she asked a waiter for a specialty tea. And this specific tea was served in a German-style mug. And Meghan looked at the tankard, familiar in a beer festival, and exclaimed, I can't have this. This is just not on brand. Take it back. What? What? The waiter returned with a china cup and saucer. And of course, the meeting ended without a contract. Well, who would want to work with this girl? She can't drink her tea out of a mug? It's not on brand. Sister girl, I can promise you that no one is sitting there and looking at you from across the room and being like, I thought I liked Meghan, but then I saw her drinking that German tankard and now I'm not so sure. Tea out of a mug? God forbid it. Weeks later, she returned to London to watch a rough cut of Antisocial. And listen to what her friend says. Now, okay, I know we all need a friend to help us see the light when we don't know, but her friend didn't even try to couch the blow. It's awful, a friend told her at the end of the private viewing. I mean, it's really bad, and it's embarrassing for you. Can you imagine if after the movie's over, your friend turns to you and goes, that's awful and it's embarrassing for you? But Meghan agreed. I mean, she couldn't think otherwise. And it was horrible because this was only her 13th brief appearance. And she wanted to forget that it had ever happened. She refused to give up, though. She said, I've never wanted to be a lady who lunches. I want to work. And earning money was her priority. And so, okay, fine. That didn't work out. Charging on. Move forward. Now, at the same time, she had her dad snapping at her heels because he wanted money. Now, he had funded every single minute of her lifestyle up until this point. But Thomas Markle now was having money troubles of his own. Could it be because he's still trying to pay back for that Northwestern education she did nothing with? It would appear that way. Now, Meghan had thrown him a couple of pennies and dimes from now, when she couldn't say no any longer. And ever since he'd funded that wedding and taken out all that money from the stock market, he'd really, borne the price of that decision. He shouldn't have done that. She didn't need that money. And I guess he just wanted to save face and be the dad who pays for the wedding. But she was in a financial position to pay for her own wedding, and he should have let her do it. But he didn't, and now he's suffering for it. So he's been short of money, and Meghan has, like I said, thrown him a couple of dimes when it was convenient for her. And she'd helped him to finance part of a car. So she didn't even buy him a car. But she helped him to finance part of it. He could get a loan for the other part. And then she helped him move house. I don't know exactly what the help was in moving. Tom Bauer just says, and Meghan helped him move home. So, move home, but move home to where? Maybe back to LA, because he'd been living in Mexico, but I don't think so, because I know he was still in Mexico when she and Harry got together, so I'm not sure what that phrase means. But anyway, she'd helped him with some housing expenses, I believe, and then she gave him a couple of bucks to add to the loan he had for a new car. And that's all Meghan could find to do. And when Thomas Markle reached out to her about maybe helping him, she called him, and he called her in Toronto, and he must have been pretty hard up, because I think that he really was proud of the fact that he'd been able to give Meghan whatever she wanted her whole life. And so for him now to have to ask her for money was probably a little bit humiliating, but he did need the help. And so when he called her in Toronto and asked if she could maybe send him some money, she said, I've checked with Andrew, who is my business manager, and according to him, I've given you $20,000 over the last 2 years, so that's going to be a hard no for me, and I need you to sort of just stop asking, okay, because I've already helped. And Markle was really shocked that she was keeping such a close tab on the money. He said that she knew down to the last dime how much she'd given him. And really, quite frankly, when you compared it to the 500,000 pounds he'd spent on her education, it seemed like $20,000 was spit in the bucket. So he felt like, now that she was making money, maybe she could help him. What an old-fashioned idea to help your parents. Now, and I just love this. I mean, this is just such a clear Meghanism. After they get done arguing about money, she says to him, I don't know why you're always down there in LA anyway. You never even come to visit me. Why don't you come up to Toronto and actually spend some time with me instead of always asking me for money? And of course he can't say yes to that. He doesn't have any money. That's the whole point. He can't even afford to fly to Toronto, but she's not offering a ticket, least of all a first class ticket. You can imagine that if she did pay for him to go, he'd be lucky if he was find a seat in the baggage. But anyway, isn't that so classic of her? That she would ask him to do something that she knows he can't do, and then she can act hurt that he didn't ever come visit her. My daddy never came to Toronto to see me. Well, your daddy is poor, and he's having money troubles, and you couldn't fund for him to come visit you if you cared that much. Okay, well, their relationship is cooling, not surprisingly. And so she takes that opportunity just to decide she's not even going to bother to come down for Christmas of 2015. Why should she? Her dad's the worst. He's probably going to ask her for a Christmas present or something. And so she spends that with Corey's family. They're still together, lo and behold. Who can believe it? It seems like Corey really lacks the, well, quite frankly, he lacks the balls to break up with her. He's very unhappy. He's not at all into who Meghan is becoming. Over the course of their relationship, she's become so self-involved that he can barely stand it. And also the fact that she just she just refuses to let the world know she's with him. It's offensive to him, as it would to any of us, I think. I would be offended. And here's the thing. In his own right, he was known as a bit of a celebrity chef in Toronto. It's not like he was flipping hamburgers down at the local Johnny Rockets. I mean, he truly was somebody that had made a name for himself, and any of Meghan's connections in Toronto were thanks to his goodwill. So for her to constantly act like, oh, I'm not going to mention that I'm with him, as though like perhaps it would have, I don't want to, I don't know what excuse she had for why she didn't speak about him on her website, or why she never let anybody know that she was with him. But she didn't. She went out of her way to make sure that people didn't know she was with him, and she also went out of her way almost to disparage him if it could have ever come up that she was connected to him. First of all, though Meghan's soon to be or potential in-laws loved her, Corey's mom thought she was the best. Said that Meghan was very smart, very bright, very caring, and very sincere. Corey was experiencing a different Meghan at home. Every time that she would come back from her trips to New York, she would be just absolutely insufferable. She'd be name dropping. She'd be talking about all the things that she had done. Anytime that Corey took her to a restaurant, she would immediately request that she get a special table because she's famous, and she just can't mingle with the unwashed masses. And Corey, in his frustration, snapped at her, "You're not Nicole Kidman, okay? You're not. So why don't you just chill out for a hot second with all of this me business, okay? We have a life here in Toronto. If you care to join, I'm here. And if you want to stop talking about yourself for just like 1 second, that would be awesome." But no, she kept on. And again, like I mentioned before, there was a real apparent unwillingness to allow any publicity about their relationship to hit any media. And certainly not on her own website would she ever mention that she knew Corey. Which is odd, though, because her whole website is about food. So why, and I mean, that's one of the many things she discusses, but it's food, fashion, and beauty. Okay, well, you're married to a chef. Seems like there would have been so much content she could have done surrounding her relationship with him and the different restaurants they went to. That would have been a fun element for her to have. It would have made her seem way less self-involved if she had been including the guy that she was in a relationship with. I would have thought that would have really helped to expand her brand. But no, because that doesn't help. If the world knows she's with somebody, how is she going to swindle all these guys into giving her freebies? They're not going to really want to touch it, because what if they have to, deal with Corey? So, of course she doesn't want to tell the world that she's with him. But then she's got this whole underhanded way of kind of kicking him under the bus, too. Because one time she had been asked in a magazine to name the 5 people that she would invite to a dinner party. And then she goes on to name all these celebrity American chefs, but not even her own boyfriend, who she's been with for years now, does she say that she'd want him at the table. She says that she'd like Anthony Bourdain and Mario Batali and Gwyneth Paltrow and Jamie Oliver, and then a friend of hers to be there. Like just, like a girlfriend to come hang out. Not the boyfriend, not him. What would he have to talk to Jamie Oliver and Anthony Bourdain about? And then, to top it all off, to add insult to injury, she even appeared as a celebrity guest on the Food Network's TV show Chopped Jr. as an expert, praising the, quote, real sort of farm fresh to table food that reminded her of what she'd been eating growing up in California. What does she think Corey's doing at his restaurant? Digging around in the dumpster out back and dragging in whatever he finds, slapping it on the grill and serving it up as some kind of an experience? Really? I mean, the thing is, she wouldn't have even had that spot on Chopped Jr. of all things. Who watches that? There's nothing worse than those kids that get up and try to talk like grown-ups. So, I mean, she wasn't even on Real Chopped. She was on Chopped Jr. But Corey is the one who secured her even that. And she didn't even have the decency to act grateful. And the entire appearance just had this sort of, I guess, unthankful tint to it, Apparently, how she said on the TIG, kindness, That's a non-negotiable for me. Did not extend to how she treated Corey. So Bauer finishes that chapter by saying that although Corey was unhappy, he seemed incapable of ending the relationship. In private, Meghan could not conceal her own impatience that things would finally get on and that they could finally break up.